Oh, now, hey, holy camole. That all happened a lot faster than I thought it was going to. We are live. We are live, kids. It's 9:19 p.m. on a Monday night. You know how you know it's Monday night? This guy right here. Beer podcasting. Woo-wee. I am tired today because, friends, have I got some good news for you. I went back to work on Friday. I think I discussed this in the last episode. It's sort of a weird day to make me go back to work. But hey, I'm happy to be back out there delivering mail, parcels, and whatnot. If you're watching at home, and a few people are, I've been wearing sunscreen, but I am darkening it up nicely, and that's a little bit of almost red up top there. I might have sweat through the old sunscreen. Taken to using the Sunbum 50 SPF. I normally stay away from those high SPFs, but it's all mineral based. I suppose aluminum is a mineral. That's always why I stayed away, is the heavy metals. But I do like that sunscreen. It's very good sunscreen. Bar, kind of smear it on the bits that you want to protect and then rub it around. Sorry if you're listening at home, you missed a very thorough and interesting sunscreen application montage, a pantomime, as it were. Anyway, here we are. It is Monday, May the 4th. Tempting to talk about Star Wars, but instead, let's talk about the man himself who passed away this day. Oh man, a while ago now, 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Of course, none other than the legendary MCA of the Beastie Boys. Sadly succumbed to cancer. That is the epitome of gone too soon. That was a man who we could all do to be more like. Anyway, rest in peace, MCA. I think of you often. That said, let's move on and get into some beer. Now, if you are watching on the YouTube, you already know the title. Everybody else, this is a bit of a surprise. Actually, come to think of it, if you're listening to the podcast, it probably said that in the title. So you probably already know. We're drinking another Godspeed beer. Ooh, look at that one. Oberkassel, I think. Oberkassel. Oberkassel. I'm not sure where you put the emphasis here, but ordered a couple of these the other day when they posted Godspeed on their socials that it was coming down the pipe. And I thought, well, I need some of that in my life. Do you know what it is, guys? It's an alt beer. But as described by Godspeed, it's a hoppier than normal alt beer. So now you're talking my language. Classic style. Some adherence to standards, but also hoppier. I love that. So yeah, let's dive in and see now. I confess I've had this beer a number of times before, including tonight. But this is the first one I'm having since I started podcasting tonight. This this glass, so potentially dirty, I'm actually going to pour it off camera and decide whether or not it gets held up. Because I can use words. We all rely on our eyes too much anyway. Yeah, that's pretty dirty. Just at the bottom. It's the third beer I've drank out of this. I didn't spend a lot of time cleaning it before I brought it here. I did rinse it, though. Anyway, nice dark brown. If you're watching right now on the videos, deceptive because there's no backlight. Looking at it through the light, this is a nice... Oh, I was going to get really snobby. Mahogany brown, anybody? It's brown. It's clear. It's very clear. Very clear. Yeah, it's pretty clear. Maybe not quite brilliant, but it's very clear. Dark brown. Glimmers of red, perhaps in the middle, but it's predominantly brown. I said mahogany, if that doesn't do it for you. What else is that? It's like buckwheat honey. Do you know what buckwheat honey looks like? Looks like buckwheat honey to me. Does not smell or taste like buckwheat honey. It's just as well, because I don't like my beers that sweet. But that's what it does look like. Nice, just off Whitehead. Khaki, you might say. Again, to fancify the terms a little bit. Let's go to the nose. Oh, look, my wife's just started watching on Instagram. I'll wave at her. She loves it when I do that. Okay, well, as always, I'm going to talk about this beer, then I'm going to talk about the category that this beer is part of. This is doing everything right now. Gonna go with Munich malt. Caramelly, toasty. Brown bread, maybe, or pumpernickel. Pumpernickel has molasses in it. I wouldn't have necessarily said molasses on that. But on the nose, a lot of malt is doing its thing. Funny enough, the hops aren't crazy aromatic in this one. I think what I'm getting, something, I mean, probably noble, probably old school hops. It's just a little leafy hoppiness. It's not, certainly not tropical. This isn't an IPA or anything like that. BIM isn't going to get crazy about that. But yeah, almost like dried leaves, I would say. Forest floor, earthy, bit of earthy. Let's go with earthy. Anyway, I'm going to stick it in my drink hole. Yeah, that's pretty good. Not going to lie. It's interesting because it's quite bitter on the finish. Not going to lie about that. It's very malty. A lot of that. What did I say earlier? Caramelly, brown bread, perhaps. Munich malt, maybe. I know I said I was drinking this earlier. I wasn't thinking that much about it. I was just enjoying it. Could be some Munich in there. Might be some Vienna. Might not be. Might. Sometimes you do a beer like this and you color it with like a very light dose of a very dark malt, just to add some kind of density to the darkness. But I do tend to think, actually, I wonder if there's Caramunic in there. Caramunic's a crystallized Munich, a little bit sweeter than the typical Munich. You can get it very dark too. Could be Caramunic too. Not sure. I do know who knows, and I know how I could find out. Not going to happen right now, though. So we're going to go with that. Malty up front, but not particularly sweet. And then not IPA dry, like hoppy stickiness, but very dry. And yeah, quite bitter on the finish. And still a bit of an earthy, maybe tannic tea-like, we would say, like black tea, kind of hot profile to it. It's beyond snappy. It's drier than snappy, and bit more bitter than snappy. I don't know if snappy's been quantified, but in my mind, I have a quantity, and this one is more. But I really, really like this beer a lot. Hot diggity dog, this is good. So we were saying it's a. Let's talk about food first. So it's challenging because the bitterness of the hop is so aggressive. Again, relative to the style, so aggressive. Typically an alt beer, it's a German style. I believe it's a lager. Should have brought my Oxford companion to beer. It's related a little bit to Kolsch, believe it or not. It's more like a darker Kolsch, but Kolsch is a lager that an ale that gets lagered. I think that's what all beer is too. It's an ale yeast that gets lagered. Anyway, I digress. Typically darker malt bill, as this one does. I'm kind of getting into the part that I said I was going to leave, but that's okay, because what I'm talking about is food. Alt beer. Typically, again, focusing on the malts, caramelly, bready, etc., etc. Things that go well with that would be like bready things, because that would be complementary. And then, of course, German fare, perhaps a pork knuckle, which always sounds kind of dirty to me somehow. Anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about what you're going to eat with this specific Oberkassel alt beer. And you know what's interesting? I'm gonna take a bit of a long shot on this one. I bet. So this is from Godspeed Brewery here in Toronto. You can't go there right now and sit down and have delicious food. More's the shame, because it's delicious. But if you could, I mean, obviously their karage, their Japanese style fried chicken, would probably be amazing with this, because the very bitter dryness of the hop would work well against the fattiness of the fried chicken. We talk about that a lot. That should come as no surprise. You probably should have been able to tell me that. But they do, I think it's a pork sandwich. I think it's like a cutlet that's breaded and then served on this really nice white sweet gluey bread. I haven't had that, but every so often, if there's an occult of Venus and Jupiter and the Earth, and Ryusuke has the wherewithal and the inspiration, they do a shrimp sando, more or less the same way, slightly different toppings and everything. But that with this beer, because again, they're using this very white, pillowy, sweet kind of bread, which on the one hand, the graininess of the beer and the bread kind of go together, but the bread is very sweet and soft and delicate, whereas the beer is quite bitter. And so they'll stand against each other. And of course, then the stuff in the middle, which is like a somewhat spicy, deep fried shrimp cutlet. Ooh, so good. I know you don't actually get a cutlet of shrimp. I believe it's more like a shrimp cake, patty. Anyway, it's been fried. It's delicious. With this beer. A little spiciness up in there. I think it comes with a Japanese pickle. It might even be the pickled mustard greens that they do. Oh, man, I could go for some of those pickled mustard greens right now. That would go really well because, okay, so now here, pickled mustard greens are sour and earthy. So we've got earthiness in the hops, but nothing sour. The sourness and the bitterness are juxtaposing. See what we're doing now, kids? We're tying flavors together. That's the secret. Anyway, that's what we need to eat with that. Delicious. And of course, if you had a German style pretzel with some mustard, it would probably work pretty nice too. I mean, I am going to talk about alt beer now, and I've already demonstrated I'm not 100% sure what I'm talking about. I think I'm right. I think it is an ale-based beer, an ale yeast, but then the beer is lagered. And I'm almost positive we've talked about this, but just in case we haven't, or in case this is your first time listening, and hey, maybe, could happen. Lager, German verb to age, I'm told. I don't sprechen Sie Deutsch that much, aside from that and a few side words. But that is my understanding. It means to age, or it implies that the beer has been aged in barrels. And what, of course, this does is when you brew, the yeast is doing a whole bunch of stuff, consuming the sugar, farting out CO2, peeing out ethyl alcohol, and also some other compounds, some of which are great and delicious, and some of which are horrible. The beautiful thing with lagering is there's extra time, weeks generally, at a colder temperature. And to some extent, some of those nastier molecules will break down and dissipate. And to another extent, some of them get reconsumed by the yeast and once again break down. But people, when they talk about lagers being clean tasting, that's what they're talking about. Is a lot of those byproducts, those side effects of the brewing process are gone. Whereas the complete opposite of that would be like a typical English style ale, like a bitter or a mild or something like that, where the yeast actually imparts a ton of character onto the beer. And in some cases, maybe isn't the main attraction, but it's right up there. English ale yeasts often taste of apple or pear or tree fruits. They can have a very distinctive, definite taste that adds to the beer. Whereas in a lagered beer, all of that character, or almost all of it's gone. So I'm pretty sure, without looking to the Oxford Companion to beer, that I think that's what's happening. Is that an alt beer like a Kolsch is an ale that gets aged. But I could be wrong about that. Get at me if I am. It happens sometimes. So that's the style of beer. Generally darker in color than a Kolsch, which tends to be gold. An alt beer tends to more brown, using darker malts. So you get more malt characteristic. This one is a banger. Not typical because of that extra hoppy bite. If you're looking for a little bit more of a typical alt beer, I know... I actually come to think of it, I say I know they used to. I assume Sawdust City still makes Old Woody Alt, which was an alt beer, but I'm not sure about that. But I would suspect they do. Anyway, you could check that out. There are also alt beers periodically at the LCBO that are actually from Germany, so you could also look at that to experience the style. I'm not sure if anybody else is making an alt beer. It's a good style though, solid beer, rock solid. So what else should we talk about? Of course, as we say every week, there's nothing happening. There really isn't. I'm back to work, so that takes up a lot of my time. I mean, I've only worked 2 days, but man, those 2 days takes up a lot of the time. I really miss that 10:30 a.m. get up from the chair and stretch. It's time to go make a cup of coffee. I don't get that now. 10:30 a.m. is normally I'm in the thick of it. So there's that. Well, given that there's nothing happening, literally nothing, and that I'm quite tired because I've been working, I probably will wrap it up. We're getting close to the end here. Coming up on 18 minutes. That's about right. A little shorter than normal, but I bet by the time I've drawn out this goodbye, we might be at totally normal sort of 26, 27 minutes. You should be so lucky. Anywho, oh, golly gee, a friend just joined on Instagram. I'll wave at them, but that's a wave goodbye. Sorry, Kevin. You know what I've noticed? So I live really close to the lake, and yesterday was a bit depressing. Here's the thing. I live in the beach, or the beaches, depending on who you ask. I go for singular. We are used to visitors, tourists, as those grouchy ones among us, like myself, refer to them. It's the nature of where we live. It's a beautiful spot and people want to come check it out. And I do not begrudge you that. There's a reason why we chose to live here. We love it. And during Jazz Fest, we hate it and it's full of people and whatever. We do go to the ice cream trucks, which is kind of nice. But aside from that, the crowds and the chaos is not our thing. And even in the summer, man, there's people everywhere and it's great and people love it. And we love you coming down to visit, but it's not our favorite part of living down here. That said, yesterday was beautiful and the beach was full and there were cars everywhere without parking permits and people with like wagons and coolers and stuff. Guys, just because you aren't necessarily within 6 feet of somebody or 2 meters, the guideline is to stay home except for essential travel. We do go to the beach regularly because we don't have a front yard. It is our front yard. but you need to stay home. Don't come down here. It's not good. Too many people come, and it just ruins it for everybody. The beach will be here in a month or 2 months or whatever. High Park will be there. Yeah, the cherry blossoms will be gone, but it's probably not worth the ticket to go check them out. Walking around downtown will be there. I promise you it's not going anywhere. I know it sucks staying home. But if you need to go outside, you can go outside in your neighborhood. Go for a walk around your block. You might see really cool stuff that you never even appreciated before. Again, I get it. I live in a great neighborhood, but don't come. We have friends who live in Whistler. They're actually stopping people on the highway and asking them their business. Whistler's closed. It's like, you cannot come here because they don't want tons of people coming in and infecting everybody who's working really hard to stay healthy. So do the same here. Anywhere in Toronto, there are some amazingly cool neighborhoods. And if that's not your neighborhood, just make a mental note that you're going to check it out later. Now is not the time to go visit other people's neighborhoods. It's just not. Okay. So please do me a favor. I'll stay out of your neighborhood. You stay out of mine. Cool. We cool. What else? Wear a mask. Throw on a mask. I know people hate it. Look, I don't know. The people watching at home, maybe you can tell. I just shaved my mustache very short. Right down and around the corners, almost into the beard. Down here below my lower lip. Everything else is still quite long though, don't worry. I had to do that because it sucked wearing a mask and getting mustache all up in my mouth. But I do need to continue wearing a mask. I'm pretty sure I'm not spreading virus anymore, but I might not have even had it. And if I were to get it, I would be spreading it. And the best way to not spread it to people is just by putting a mask over my damn face. So I do it, even though I hate it. You can do it too. I have to do it for like 8 hours a day. Doctors have to do it for even longer. If you go out, put on a mask. I want to see places like Loblaws and Costco. I think it's already announced you're not allowed in if you're not wearing a mask. That's good. We need to do this. So put on a mask. Don't come to my neighborhood. Don't go to any neighborhood that isn't yours. I know I normally tell you to hug people and stuff, but apparently I got grouchy at the end of this one. Maybe I need another sip of beer. Hang on a sec. That's a good beer, and I'm glad I'm not wearing a mask right now. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to drink it. Look at the time, 22 minutes. Don't hug anybody, guys. That's a stupid idea, unless they're people who you live with. Hug them as much as you can. But everybody else, just like a virtual hug. Give a thumbs up, maybe. Do you know the sign language for I love you? It's like baby finger up, ring finger, middle finger down, index finger up, thumb out. I love you. You could tell that to people using the sign language. You could also use words. They work too. Whatever you do, tell somebody you love them, because you probably do. Give them a hug if you live with them. And stay home, but wear a mask if you don't. That's the PSA from the Toronto Beer Blog. Also by this Oberkassel at, I was going to say left field. Left field, Kevin's watching right now. At Godspeed Brewery, doing delivery still. You can order this right now. It's in the brewery, and it's delicious. And then see if you can replicate that sando I was telling you about. Those mustard grains. If you figure those out, drop me a jar, because I want some of that. Otherwise, be good to each other. Take care of each other. I'm not even going to tell you. I might talk at you in the middle of this week. I'm working. What do you want from me? I'm a man, not a stone that you can get blood from. That doesn't even make sense. I'm out of here, guys. Take care of each other. We love you lots. Be good. And I'll talk at you in, a week or so.